video, we'll be going over all the steps to mat train your dog. In order to do this, you will need a mat that's comfortable for your dog to lay on in the appropriate size, as well as a healthy amount of your dog's favorite treats. To start, I always recommend just sitting on the ground with your dog. This will decrease the amount of motion and make the behavior easy for the dog to understand. We start to introduce our duration marker, which is a good, in contrast with our terminal marker, which is yes. Yes is going to have motion, and good means stay still. You're doing exactly what I want, don't move. Good. Good. Yes. If your dog does not know how to lay down at this point, you can always lure into a down. So fox stand. Good. To lure into a down, you get your dog chewing on the treat on your hand, and then you push back between their front legs. Good. And they will fold into a down. Usually you need a treat that your dog really, really, really loves. Good. Yes. Good. Good. Yes. At this point, I do anywhere from 1 to 5 goods. We want to keep it variable for our dogs. We don't want to anticipate every time they get 2 goods, the next one is a yes, so then they start jumping off the mat after 2 goods. We want to keep it variable so they don't know what to expect. Good. So that they stay on the mat and they're not popping up to anticipate a treat off the mat. Good. Good. The beginning, you might just be repeat feeding very quickly to your dog. That's okay. As they start to understand the behavior a little bit more, you can start to have more duration between your goods. Good. Yes. Once you can have duration between the goods and your dog is not trying to pop up, you can start to increase the motion. So just generally standing up is a lot for some dogs. The process of having to bend over for a good, for that treat, can be a lot of motion and will cause the dogs to jump up. It's also a lot of pressure of your body and it makes them jump up. It's okay if your dog's having a problem at this step of just standing up, just go back to the sitting down and work some more time on the ground before you jump up to this step. Good. Yes. Down. Good. So we're just going to start to have little bits of motion and make it a little more difficult and a little more difficult. So to start, some dogs, just moving your foot is a lot of motion for them. Play around, see where your dog is at, make it easy so that they succeed, and just start to slowly increase the amount of motion. Motion is very difficult for a lot of dogs, and it will cause them to pop up. So make sure that your dog's going to succeed. Don't push them too much. Don't try to jump steps. Just start to slowly move around and reinforce with your good. Yes. Down. Good. Good. So once we're able to move around our dog in more of a U shape, we can walk away, we can walk back. The next step would be to do is to walk around your dog in a circle. This is really difficult for some dogs, so don't get frustrated at this point. You can always go back a step. There's also a few little troubleshooting tricks that you can do to help your dog along the way. One of my favorites is just putting a treat in their nose, letting them lick on that treat until you go all the way around, and then it releases with a good. If bending over is difficult for you, you can always do this in a sit. Sit. Good. And then the treat is released when you go all the way around. Ooh. And if they pop, just make sure they get back down before that treat is released. Down. Another trick you can do is to break your treat into a few little pieces. When you get to ground the hip portion of your dog, you can give a good and scatter the treats between their feet. This way they're a little busy eating those treats and they're not really paying attention to you walking around them. Good. Once the dog becomes used to you walking around, we want to be able to get to the point where we can walk all the way around and we're not having to assist our dog in any way. We can walk away, we can walk back, and this takes a long time. This is something Fox already knows, so I'm able to go through the steps really quickly. Don't get frustrated. If your dog continues to pop up, just decrease the motion, go back down a step. A lot of times dogs are at this step anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, depending on the dog, anywhere from 5-minute sessions a day working on the mat. Good. Yes. So now we have a consistent mat stay. The dog understands that they lay on the mat. Good. They don't move from the mat until they're being released from the mat. This is a great time to start to introduce your recall. Since you have a consistent stay on the mat, you can move away and start calling your dog with a hand touch. Box. Yes. Down. Good. Good. Sometimes I will walk away and I walk all the way back again with a good, so we don't want her to anticipate being called every time I walk away. Good. Fox. Yes. Down. Good. Fox. Yes. Good girl. All right, the next step that we do to chain the behavior for the mat is that we're going to stop asking our dogs to down. We want them to offer the down on their own. This is referred to as shaping the behavior. Some dogs will immediately come over for a sit. Just wait them out, just like Fox, and wait for them to offer that down instead, and you can reinforce that. If your dog seems to get stuck at this point and they're only offering a sit after waiting for several moments and then they're just checking out and not wanting to problem solve, you can always lure into a down to reward. Good. Just like that. Good. Fox. Yes. You can set intention back on the mat. Good. Another thing I see a lot of dogs do is that they will just intently stare at you. Either they'll stand on the mat and stare at you or off to the side. Don't just stare back at your dog. Put your intention on the mat. So look at the mat. It does feel like forever sometimes, but give your dog a chance to problem solve the behavior. Don't help them. Don't point at the mat. Don't click. Don't point. We want them to offer that down on the mat independently. Good. Fox. Yes. Good. Fox. Yes. Good. Fox. Yes. Good. Good. Fox. Yes. All right, we are almost to the last step of chaining all these behaviors together. We have done a lot of steps. We started in the beginning, just sitting on the floor with our dog. We took out all motion from this behavior. We sat with them and started to teach them the difference of our terminal marker yes and our duration marker good. The next step that we did was starting to incorporate motion, where we stood up and started to bend over in order to feed treats. Good. That motion can be very triggering from some dogs and cause them to pop up from their downs. We started working in steps around the dog, rocking back and forth, and then the final last step is that we worked walking all the way around our dog. So now that our dog is used to motion around the mat and they know their criteria is to not get up, we're able to walk away from the mat and start practicing our hand touch recalls. You put your hand out and you call the dog's name. The criteria is that they need to touch your palm in order to get their yes marker. After we can practice the recall off, we worked on shaping the mat. So this is not helping our dog in any way. We're waiting for them to offer that down, good, on their own independently, and we're able to reward it and begin to walk away, walk around, and create that motion around the mat. Call them off, step back to the mat. We're not helping them at all. They offer the down independently. Good. So this is where we start to train the last step of the mat behavior. This is also where we're going to start to pair a word with the mat. You can use any word you want. Some ones that are very common are place, mat, bed, or settle. Those are ones that I hear most often. We use the word mat. So what we'll do is we start to call off, box, yes, and we set intention on the mat, but we start using our word, mat. Good. 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 Box. Yes. Mat. Good. So when we start placing that word, you might need to take a step or two to place your intention toward the mat. You might need to walk all the way up to the mat. That is fine. Good. Box. Yes. As your dog begins to understand the behavior, you can start to work the distance to be able to send your dog to the mat. Mat. Good. Box. Yes. Mat. Good. And you can still practice all of your motion at this point, being able to walk around, move around. This kind of simulates that environment that you're at the brewery and people are walking around your dog or other dogs walking around your dogs. It can simulate you cooking dinner and your kids are moving around doing homework or playing with toys and the dog is calmly on their mat. Good. Box. Yes. Mat. Good. Once your dog is at this point where you have trained the entire chain of behaviors, where you can say the command word and the dog will independently find their mat and lay down, we can start to vary our goods and the amount of duration between them and how many we give and our distance away from the mat. Good. If you have found that your dog needed to be fed every 30 seconds between goods, start to increase that duration. Back up. Good. You can start to do every 45 seconds, every minute. Make it a little bit longer. Keep it variable still. Sometimes they'll get a good, followed immediately by another good, followed by a longer period of time. So yet again, we don't want our dog to anticipate We want them to keep it variable, and this is how we can start to slowly extend the time between reinforcements, where we're not just stuck in that cycle of having to feed our dog every 30 seconds for them to stay on the mat and not pop up. We keep it variable. They don't know when that next reinforcement is coming, and they will calmly sit on the mat waiting for that next reinforcement. Good. Now that you're at this level of being able to train your dog to calmly stay on the mat, they understand the criteria. This is something that is an invaluable tool that you can use. You can take it to your favorite local restaurant to be able to sit outside and have your dog calmly lay on the mat while your family enjoys dinner. You can use it while taking your kids to the playground. You can have your dog calmly lay on the mat while watching your kids play. Or maybe at your kid's soccer game, you can bring the dog along if it's allowed. Have your dog calmly lay on the mat while watching the kids' soccer game. It also is very invaluable to use in the house. There are times where I'm cooking dinner and my dogs become underfoot because they're looking for any kind of food that's falling on the ground. We can send to the mat. They need to calmly stay on their mat while I'm cooking dinner, so I'm not having to worry about a dog being underfoot. Maybe you have a dog who has poor manners around dinner time, and you're trying to enjoy your dinner and your dog is trying to climb onto the kitchen table. This is a great opportunity to send your dog to their mat so that they're calmly laying on their mat. They know where they're supposed to be instead of trying to eat your dinner. Good. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help all along the way. If you're having any flub ups or any kind of problems, send me an email. I can work in class with you as well, and we can get this to be a nice, consistent behavior. But this is the easiest way for your dog to be calm and confident while you're out, and for your dog to be an active participant in your life, where they're not always having to stay home because they don't have the manners in order to behave out in public. Good. Okay. Fox. Good girl. Yes, you were awesome.